It's been a while since I made a video that pissed a lot of people off. I think it's time to make a new one. Before I get into why I think LUTs are overused and abused, we need to understand what exactly LUTs are and why they exist. For starters, a LUT is a very simple way to store color change information. LUT stands for lookup table, and that's exactly what a LUT is. A LUT processes an image by taking each individual pixel's brightness and color information, then looking up those values on a table and replacing the pixel based on the information in the table. For example, let's say I had a LUT designed to increase the overall brightness of an image. The LUT would take each pixel in an image, see that the table specified increasing the brightness of each pixel, then do that. Of course, LUTs can store far more complex color change information than that. So now that we've got a basic understanding of how a LUT works, why were they actually created? Well, the purpose is actually really technical and boring. Color correction, calibration, and matching. Let's say a TV station uses two different types of cameras from different manufacturers. Since those cameras have different color science, they will look noticeably different when edited together. To solve this, a person called a shader, basically the broadcast equivalent of a colorist, can take two images from the two cameras showing a color calibration chart and use that as a reference to match the cameras. Then store the changes as a LUT so the cameras don't have to be manually matched every time they are used. With the advent of log picture profiles in the film and video world, LUTs also became useful to us filmmakers because manufacturers could create LUTs to automatically convert log images to a standard color profile, ensuring a proper conversion before a colorist started working and saving them time as well. There are lots of other technical uses for LUTs besides log conversions and color matching. They can be used for general color correction, for example if a camera sensor has a predictable color shift. In addition, they can also be used to ensure a video feed conforms to a certain standard, for example for broadcast. Eventually LUTs got adapted for creative purposes as well. A colorist working on a feature film will have a lot of shots to grade. If there's a consistent look throughout the entire film, a colorist can store the basics of the look in a LUT, then all they have to do is correct the images, apply the LUT, then tweak the results to fit the particular shot or scene. Unfortunately, that type of workflow led to the problematic abuse of LUTs that's so prevalent today. Colorists creating looks and storing them in LUTs, and then selling the LUTs and advertising them as one-click color grading. Lots of new filmmakers buy those LUTs, thinking they can easily get cinematic color without actually understanding how color grading works, and instead end up with over-stylized images that quite simply look trashy. Oftentimes the LUTs are the problem themselves, but I'll get into that in a bit. First, I want to cover how LUTs are used. A new filmmaker who's bought a bunch of LUTs will want to use them. So they'll take whatever project they're working on and start slapping different LUTs on a clip from that project until they get a result they like, and then just apply that LUT to all of the footage. Anyone with experience with color grading should immediately notice the problem with that workflow, and you only have to compare it to the original creative workflow for LUTs I described. Before you can effectively use a LUT, you need to color correct all of your footage to get a balanced starting point. In addition, LUTs should be designed to have a very simplistic look that can be easily tweaked, and a colorist should tweak the look of a LUT to match each shot. Not doing so can result in extraneous color problems that colorists are trained to notice and remove, but are distracting when not fixed. That transitions us perfectly into the creation of LUTs and the problems caused by people making LUTs to sell. Go to an average website selling LUTs, and you'll see lots of before and after images showing how the LUTs change the footage. Generally, the looks will be incredibly stylized so they look as cool as possible to encourage an aspiring colorist to buy them. Well, to quote professional cinematographer Phil Rhodes, generating a creative LUT that makes a single test shot look good is reasonably easy. Creating one that is truly general purpose and behaves well in a wide variety of circumstances is considerably more difficult. Lots of LUTs will look great on the test images being used to advertise them, and probably the test images that the colorist used to create the LUT. but they won't work well on a majority of footage, especially the variety of footage that a typical filmmaker will have in their projects. Again, this leads to filmmakers buying LUTs and trying to use them as one-click color grading, but instead they get an incredibly stylized look that only really looks good on a couple shots in the entire film. I want to emphasize that I'm not saying nobody should ever use LUTs for creative purposes, or that you shouldn't buy LUTs. Hell, I have a folder with over a gigabyte of creative LUTs that I've bought, downloaded, and created myself. What I want to get across is that if you have no knowledge of color grading, you shouldn't buy and use LUTs. And even if you do have knowledge of color grading, you shouldn't use LUTs unless you're going to use your knowledge as a colorist. Every shot you apply a LUT to should be color corrected first, and you should be prepared to tweak shots as necessary after you've applied the LUTs. If you don't have the time to do that, then you don't have the time to use a LUT. The good news for those that don't have any color grading knowledge is that it's really easy. I have a guide on my channel on how to color correct, as well as several color grading related videos that cover the looks of different films, and I'm far from the most avid or qualified creator of free color grading information. To conclude, use LUTs, but don't use them without a purpose. And before I end this video, I want to say that I did reference a recent article by Phil Rhodes on Red Shark News, which covered essentially the same points I did. But I've been working on this video since before I read the article, so don't go accusing me of plagiarism. Anyway, that is it for this video. Hopefully, this video helped you learn more about what a LUT is and how they work, and how to properly use them. And if so, please hit that like button. If not, feel free to hit the dislike button. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those down in the comment section down below. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button.